at AAJA. I'd like to thank our two candidates for Vice President of Journalism Programs for joining us. We're having an election right now that you guys can vote in, and we have these two fabulous candidates here, and so we just wanted to let you get to know them a little bit. So Frank Bi and Archith Seshadri are with us right now, and we'll do a quick little hangout with them here where we'll ask them a few questions. If you have any questions, feel free to tweet us questions at AAJA with the hashtag AAJ Hangout. But for right now, let's just have you guys introduce yourselves. Tell us a little bit about, where you're based and your experience, your work experience. So we can start off with Frank, and then Archith, you can go ahead.
Hey, Nicole. Thanks, everyone, for joining the Hangouts. As Nicole mentioned, my name is Frank. I'm with the New York chapter right now, so I'm based out of New York City. I work at Vox Media's SB Nation. It's a sports website, and I do storytelling engineering, which is like magazine layout, but for the web. So it's experimental storytelling formats, etc. I also teach. I teach at Fordham University. I teach data literacy and data visualization in the Bronx. And then I also travel the country as a Google News Initiative trainer. Some of you guys might have seen one of my trainings at AAJ or elsewhere, but I travel the country to newsrooms, conferences, and other spots to show them how to use free Google tools in their workflows. So that's a little bit about me.
All right, thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Frank, and thank you everybody for joining in. Super excited to be part of the Google Hangout. Aloha from Hawaii. I'm actually here on vacation, but of course wanted to talk to you guys and get to share a little bit of my story, hopefully to win your vote. My name is Archith Seshadri. I'm part of the Atlanta chapter. In fact, I just moved back from Asia, where I was part of the AAJA chapter. So I've been involved with AAJ for about 11 years. I started my first conference in 2007, Miami. And I am a broadcaster, one of the few Asian American broadcasters that we have so far, but we need more. I've spent the last decade in many newsrooms across the US and in Asia. I'm an anchor and reporter. I've also done a lot of social media. Right now, I'm freelancing, so it's new turf for me. I'm freelancing for a social media startup in Atlanta and also doing reporting and anchoring for International Network. So that's a quick nutshell about me, and excited to talk to you guys.
So this position, you'll obviously be interacting a lot with our signature programs at AAJA, like Voices, JCamp, ELP. I was just wondering, how would your experiences within AAJA help you with this particular position? Frank, do you want to go?
Sure. I think both of us have experience with our signature programs. I was a Voices graduate in 2011. That was a Detroit conference. That really set me off with AAJ. After that, I went to every single convention following Voices. It was such a great experience. And part of that is why I want to give back to AAJ now. So ever since Voices, I've been trying to get as much involved with AAJ as I can. I was first involved with the Minnesota chapter. Then when I moved to DC, I was involved with the DC chapter. And now here I am with the New York City chapter. And also for the last couple of years, the last 2 years, and also this conference, I've been the National Convention Programming Chair. So I'm responsible for our team. The committee is responsible for, planning the topics that we talk about at convention, also finding the speakers and making sure all the topics are kind of touched upon and that our members who come to convention have a really good program to attend. So
great.
And I'll sort of pick up on that. Yeah, absolutely. I think the programs are crucial. They're so pivotal. I've done 2 of the 4 programs. I've done ELP, the Executive Leadership Program for mid-career journalists. I was a graduate of the class of 2014 in Washington, D.C. Our group is great. It's very tight. We still talk even to this day. And whenever we're at convention, we meet up and try to help each other out, support each other through our goals, and try to build that relationship and that network. And I'm currently the co-lead for the Mentor Match program. I've been involved with mentoring for many years, part of my AAJ experience, but me along with Hannah and Ruth Lau, all 3 of us co-lead the Mentor Match program. So that's been fantastic. We've had an overwhelming response in our inaugural year, 150 matches, which is fantastic. And we've also expanded to an Asia chapter with Elaine, and now I think Zayla is taking over in Hong Kong. So it's a great program. For me, why I think I'd be a great fit for the programs is I'm a product of 2 of the 4 programs. I did not, unfortunately, get a chance to be part of Voices or JCamp because I was in a different career. I switched careers 6 years into my engineering consulting career into journalism. So for me, even though I didn't go to journalism school, AAJ has been the journalism school, and these programs are what I'm grateful for because they've taught me everything I need to know, the network, the skills and all the tools that I need to be successful no matter which city or market I move into. And in fact, I've been involved with 3 different AAJA chapters: Atlanta, North Carolina, and Asia.
Yeah, and on a related note, we have a question from Doris Trong, who asked, if you haven't participated in some of these programs, how do you plan to make inroads with these different ones that you haven't participated in yet? And Archith, do you want to pick up there?
Yeah, that's a great question, Doris. Thanks for asking that. I think that's a very crucial question, but I think a lot of the programs in a certain way have a lot of overlap in terms of what do they bring, what is the audience, and what is the goal? Whether it's high school students, whether it's college students, whether it's young graduates or early journalists, or those who've been working in the industry for a certain amount of time. In fact, this past 2 weeks, I've talked to the director, I've talked to Aralis, and I've talked to Ben of JCamp to understand their goal, their vision, the structure, and what they would like for Atlanta, as well as the co-leads for Voices and what challenges they face. And I think to know what they want, and if it's not broken, let's not fix it. But if there's certain things they would like help in, I think that's crucial. And that's what I was able to decipher from them: fundraising, brand integration, and really getting all the leads on a call together. So I talked to Maya and I talked to Jesse. So I have a good understanding of what they would like. And as the former chapter president of Atlanta, we've organized year after year the annual student workshop. So we have dealt with our own voices in JCamp, if you will, on a local chapter level. So I think really taking those skills and applying and helping both JCamp and Voices, I think would be a very smart and strategic move for AAJ.
Frank, do you want to go too?
Yeah, so I have not been to JCamp, unfortunately. I did Voices. I have yet to do ELP, and I have not had the chance to do Mentor Match yet. But I do know everyone who kind of puts those programs together. So I know the same people that Archith knows, right? So the number one thing that I would say about all these programs and making inroads is to make sure that they get what they need, right? The position here, VP of Journalism Programs, represents all the signature programs that we have at AAJ, and to make sure that they do what they do best. I'm not going into these programs if I'm elected and I'm saying, look, we need to do this and that. Like Archith said, if something's broken, don't fix it, right? But what I am going to do if I am elected as the VP of Journalism Programs is if they need something, they can come to me and I'll make sure that it's followed through. I think I have a very good track record of getting things done, especially with convention programming or helping out Voices, etc. If they need something, they can come to me and I'll make sure on the national board that their concerns are echoed.
And here's another question from a member. Elaine Ramirez asked in a Facebook post, what do you find to be the most urgent problem facing the journalism programs? Archith, do you want to go take that?
Absolutely. Elaine, great question as well. We got a chance to talk in Houston and in Hong Kong with regards to some of the programs. In fact, Elaine and I have also worked together for Mentor Match. She sort of spearheaded and started the Asia program for Mentor Match. With regards to your question in terms of the urgent challenge, listening to all of the leads and understanding what they need, I think has been informative. And the uniform sort of concern or challenge is transparency when it comes to fundraising in terms of budget allocation. Certain programs need more money than others. High school students and college students, whether it's JCamp or Voices, do require more money because it's fully funded, and that requires they need to know the budget early on. We cannot tell them later on in the program, hey, we have X amount of dollars. Other programs like ELP and Mentor Match certainly could benefit from the funding, but most likely if you are a mid-career journalist, you are working, you do have some amount of money that you can put towards a stipend or ask your boss for corporate sponsorship, and Mentor Match is a free program. The only cost for Mentor Match really is a reception. So one thing that I also thought would be great is to get everybody together and do a joint networking reception in Atlanta when we do that next year to consolidate costs and not have multiple receptions. A, that's a waste of time. B, that also costs a lot of money. And C, it helps all the different groups and really creates a pipeline connect between JCamp, Voices, ELP, and Mentor Match. So I think fundraising and being transparent, having those calls early on with the leads, giving them the leeway so that they're not scrambling the last minute for money is going to be the most important thing that we kickstart once we launch the program.
Great, thanks. Frank, how about you?
Yeah, funding is certainly really important. When I did Voices in 2011, we had a pretty big class. And now I see that, we have a smaller class than we had in 2011. We had even a smaller class than we had well before 2011 as well, right? So funding is really important. But I think if I'm elected as VP of Journalism Programs, the biggest thing that I want to kind of do is to continually engage our graduates, right? So we want to create that pipeline where someone graduates from JCamp, how do we get them up to go to Voices later? How do we, after Voices, how do we get them into the journalism industry? Because all of us know that a lot of the folks who do JCamp, who do Voices, not all of them end up being journalists and coming back to AAJ. But how do we engage these graduates to be newsroom leaders and also come back and help us at AAJ? So I think with a lot of these examples of, folks graduating from JCamp and doing Voices, we want them to, all these programs to be self-sustainable in a way. Right now, Voices, the chairs for Voices right now, they did Voices several years ago, right? JCamp's the same way. How do we get folks who do JCamp now to be the leaders of JCamp later and move them through the process? I say this about AAJ a lot, but that kind of analogy is AAJ is kind of a contact sport in a way, right? So we see each other every year, once a year in August and July, and we see each other and it's really a good time. But how do we maintain our relationships with folks who come to the convention once a year? How do we keep that relationship going and keep them moving through the process and always coming back to give back to AAJ?
And so beyond ensuring the health of the existing programs, where do you see AAJ's programs going in the next 2 years? You can talk about it generally, but also we'd love to hear about any particular programs where you think they should go. Frank, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so for the next couple of years, where do we see these programs going? What we would like to do? Obviously, I'd like to put this question on the program chairs, right? They know the programs the best. They know it the in and out way better than anyone on the national board does, right? So whatever they want to do, I just want to make sure that their concerns are heard. If it's funding, that's one thing, right? But obviously, one thing I would like to see is to have more students kind of go through this experience. More students, more mid-career folks go through ELP, right? And a lot of that does come down to funding, but there's always this question of quality over quantity. I want to make sure that, the chairs feel comfortable if it's expanding or if it's doing something different, doing that. But also another way to kind of approach this question is, how do we incorporate more than just what we consider kind of like big journalism, right? It's broadcast, it's print, it's digital. Now we're seeing things like YouTube. We're seeing things like Netflix, podcasts, radio. We see an expansion of what we kind of traditionally known as journalism. And how do we include more of these folks and show students, mid-career professionals that there's more to media and there's more that AAJ covers than just print, broadcast, digital, etc.
And I think the goal of these programs, right, ultimately, we have to ask, what is the goal of the VP of Journalism programs? Why do we have all of these programs in place? Ultimately, it's to make sure that we train journalists of all level to have the right tools, the right skills, so they can succeed in their own newsrooms and workplaces. So whether they start off early on high school, whether it's in college, or they're mid-career journalists who perhaps unable to take part in those programs, we need to continuously look at the curriculum and make sure that we are taking and being industry relevant. And I think one thing that's also very important is that we are in line and perhaps setting the bar for other organizations as well to look into what we're doing, SPJ, NABJ, NAHJ. And I've worked with a lot of those people already on the local level in Atlanta to see how they're really making use of their programs and really being able to put those voices. Because what is our goal? We want to make sure that we train journalists so they can have positions of power, leadership positions, EP, directors, and things like that in newsrooms. So how are we following through with that and giving them those right tools? I know Doris, for example, right now is at Pointer, making sure that we not only let them know, but provide them the funding and then the accessibility, either it's scholarships or awareness to say, hey, AAJ is organizing this 1-week camp for broadcast journalists or radio journalists and giving them the opportunities to succeed, not just during the conference, but year long. And a lot of people that I've spoken to, both at the student level who are younger journalists and those who have been working, have asked for webinars throughout the year or Skype calls. I know AAJA did this and it was really successful. We don't have to wait till the conference to give these programs a lease of life. They can be year-long programs where continuously the leaders are delegating to the program leads and saying, hey, this might be really good on how to cover school shootings since we have so many of them. In fact, Pointer had that not too long ago. And that could be great for any level since we saw what happened in Parkland and we have those survivors there. I think a leader is someone who's able to, understand the challenges and provide support for each of those programs. And since I think I have a good understanding of all 4 of those programs, I think I really would be able to contribute a lot and help AAJ sustain this growth. And the growth, really, I would like to have more students and more people graduate through these programs over the years to make them bigger, better, and brighter.
Yeah, I mean, which programs do you see will have a lot of growth in the future? I mean, do you see any particular strands of places where you can really expand the membership within some of these programs? And what do you think of this push to kind of have these programs go beyond just AAJA members and opening them up? How do you feel about this kind of inclusivity of everybody? Do you want to take that, Archith?
Yeah, I can take that. That's a good question. In fact, we've had exactly those conversations. We had a leadership retreat in Houston earlier on this year, right at the end of the conference with all the leads. And we talked about the very same thing about, should we keep this exclusively for AAJA members or should we broaden it out? I think while inclusivity is very important and being able to leverage and see what other groups are doing is great, but specifically, our goal is to make sure that we have voices of Asian American voices in newsrooms, in workplaces. And that is really only going to happen by us letting other members of the community know. In fact, that leadership retreat was not just folks who were Asian American. We had Latino, we had people who were African American, people who were white. We need to let people know the challenges and issues that we face so that they can understand and take that back to their own newsrooms. So yes, I do think it should be a member benefit for AAJA members, but that doesn't mean that it's only for someone who's of Asian descent. And I absolutely think that the biggest challenges are going to be JCamp and Voices. Why? They are the future. They are the next group, and those groups are relatively small right now, and they require funding and money. So that's going to come through sponsors and through stipends. ELP will continue to evolve, and I think it's fantastic. Mentor Match has been amazing. 150 matches we didn't even expect. In fact, it's to a point where it's really big, and it's not like we don't want it to be too big or we can't manage it. Our goal was one mentor per mentee. We now have some amazing mentors who are taking 2 or 3 mentees, which is fantastic. So I'm not concerned about that. I think we have 2 fantastic co-leads who will still grow and continue the program, but it's our student programs, College JCamp and Voices, that really are going to set the tone and the path. So they need, I think, more help and more money than the other 2 programs. And I think that's where our attention should be.
So I think when it comes to exclusivity, I understand that some of the programs we put together, especially JCamp, is just really good for the community, right? For JCamp, you don't have to be an AAJA member, especially if you're in high school. You don't have to be an AAJA member to apply for JCamp. It's certainly not to be accepted for it, right? So things like that, JCamp is just really good for the community, especially when you're in high school, you're not sure what you want to do. I did not do JCamp, but I did something similar. It's called the Urban Journalism Workshop. And they had several different iterations of it all across the country. So I did one of them, and it really, when I did the camp for a week, it really kind of ingrained in me that I wanted to be a journalist. And that was just really good for the community and not necessarily geared me towards AAJA. But I think overall, the most important thing to recognize is that you don't have to be Asian American. You certainly don't have to be Asian to be an AAJA member. You just have to believe in our mission and want to give back and want to kind of push for diversity and inclusion in a newsroom.
Great. And so with this position, you're obviously doing a lot with the journalism program, but you're also in a position so that you can really help the president push the agenda of where AAJA wants to go in the future. What do you see as some of the biggest problems or issues that AAJA is facing now? And how do you think the organization should go towards addressing some of those? Frank, do you want to start?
Yeah, one thing, and this is a problem that we try to address with convention programming as well, is how to catch up with all the trends that go through media now, right? As I mentioned earlier in my introduction, I do a lot of these trainings all across the country, teaching folks even how to be better at using Google search. There's a lot of different things there that get added every day to just make your job easier. Technology is a big part of that. Just making sure, whether it's at convention programming or at JCamp or Voices ELP, how are you on top of things, right? LinkedIn was not a thing at one point, right? Facebook was not a thing. Twitter was not a thing. How do we keep up with the trends and make sure our members are employable and they're on top of everything, right? So that is definitely something that all journalism organizations struggle with, just keeping up with everything that comes out every day.
And I'll continue that. I think certainly great points. And several years ago, when I was attending AAJA as a relatively earlier entrant into the journalism world, again, as I said earlier on, switching careers, we would have amazing half-day or full-day workshops on Wednesdays. I would love to bring that back and have that. Coming in early, maybe on a Tuesday night to conference, and having half a day to work on IRE, investigative journalism, being able to really, there was a Google Lab initiative on site at the conference. Because if you're already coming, it's one day here and there, it really is not going to be a huge challenge since you're already spending money for airfare, hotel, and registration, and optional workshops perhaps on Saturday. Those who want to learn will make that commitment to do that. And if we provide them those tools and opportunities, I think that is pivotal. And as I mentioned earlier, I don't think we have to wait till the conference. When I was the co-lead of the AASMBJ, that's the small market broadcast journalism group, we did quarterly blog talk radios where we would have conversations and discussions like this Google Hangouts and conference calls on topics like, should I get an agent? What are how do you pitch and cultivate sources? Things like that we don't have to wait for an entire year to be trained. Why do people come to conferences? To network, to get a job, to really leave empowered. We need to provide those tools year long, not just for one week of the year. And that being said, I think one growth that AAJ could really focus in on is perhaps partnering up with other organizations. NABJ does that. SPJ does that. And I know we've had unity in the past, but perhaps not worrying about getting everybody together, maybe just one group together. Maybe it's IRE, maybe it's the Hispanic journalists, where we can bring people together, bring better speakers, get more people to attend it, which fosters for better networking. And at the same time, that also makes the career fair more viable for people. I know over the years, sometimes we've seen the career fair a little dwindle, and our members want a good, strong career fair as well as strong panels. They want to come there to build those foundations for their next job and their next opportunity to grow. And that is only going to happen when we have companies there. For example, ABC has not come to an AAJ conference in several years. Why? We need to find out why we're lacking and how are we going to fix that. And perhaps if we have more attendees where we can join with partner up with another organization, that may be an incentive for corporations to also save money on booths, but a win-win for them because there'll be more people attending.
Actually, do you have a question from Twitter? One of our members is asking, how are you guys supporting Pacific Islander journalists in these kind of programs? What kind of things do you want to do to, I'm adding a little bit to this question, but what kind of things will you do to reach out to that demographic? Archith, do you want to go in?
Absolutely. Well, very appropriate.
In Hawaii right now.
In one of the Pacific Islands right now. Again, aloha from Hawaii on my vacation. I think it's a great question. I've actually gone to the East-West Media Conference in New Delhi. When I moved to India a few years ago to anchor for an English network, I pretty much packed my 2 suitcases and went there, but sort of having the trust of my experience and the fact that there was an Asia chapter there. How fantastic is that? A chapter in Seoul, a chapter in Tokyo, the amazing N3 conference in Hong Kong. Being able to leverage the AAJ family, not just in the mainland, but also in Asia, was a no-brainer. And because of that, I was able to meet and go to the East-West Conference, the N3 conference, and understand what all they do. And when you mentioned about how we can reach out to that audience, I think we certainly should leverage and build our brand with AAJ Asia and allow them to reach out to that demographic as well, continue to support them. In fact, I believe there are also talks for executive leadership program there next year. So it isn't just things in the mainland that we need to focus in on. It is a global entity. AAJ is around the world, which I think is fantastic, and we need to leverage that. And when we talk about issues of perhaps offer scholarship money to have more stories and pieces from Polynesia, AAPI stories, that is the way we get our voices out in the community and encourage those untold stories and untold voices to be out there, so those journalists also get an equal and fair chance to be out there. And I think partnering up with AAJ Asia really is a no-brainer. I know East West Center also would be a great organization that we could partner up with. They do have some programs here in Hawaii, and they also did their conference in Singapore. So I think that's what I think would be viable to get those stories out there.
I don't think we're just talking about AAJ Asia. We're talking about, Hawaiian, Samoa, Guam folks who want to be more involved with our journalism association. This is something that we addressed with the convention programming this past year. We had a panel. We had a couple pitches on covering the API community. The committee decided that was a really good way to go about. So we had a really big session around that. And it was really well attended. And I think the topics that were discussed were worthy of, the time that everybody came to listen. But another issue that we still have is that it's inaccessible for a lot of our friends in Hawaii or Guam or Samoa to come to our convention. Money is always a big thing, right? And we want them to be able to feel like they're a part of our organization, whether if they can attend convention at all or be part of it through, telecommuting, whether it's, a Hangouts or something else. One thing that I told folks who always want to come or base in Hawaii or stuff is that we try to have as many scholarships as we can to support folks who have to travel super long distance to get to the convention. right? And part of the position, part of the responsibility of the VP of Journals and Programs is not just our signature program, but to also make sure our scholarships are there, right? Scholarships are there for folks to go to JCAM or folks to go to ELP who might have a family at home and they have to leave them behind for a couple of days, right? So making sure those scholarships are there and making sure that our friends who might not be able to, pay their own way to get to AAJA or to have their employer do it, make sure those scholarships are there as well. And also, of course, to make sure their issues are covered as well.
Great. Thank you guys so much. Do you have any last messages for the AAJA community, especially if they're undecided? Now is your chance to say something. So Frank, do you want to have a last word to the community?
Yeah, just thank you very much for joining this Hangout. Thank you very much for coming out to vote this week. This is a very good election and very good for AAJA, and I really appreciate it. I think everyone here, everyone on this Hangout, everyone in the staff who kind of put this out, who publicized it, who publicized the election, really appreciate it. I just want to let you know that, if you have any questions or if you ever want to talk, I'm always here to listen. Shoot me a message on Facebook, shoot me a message on Twitter, always there for you. And of course, if you aren't on Slack already, join Slack, all right?
All right, I will also continue. Thank you, Frank. Thank you, Nicole. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you for you guys for taking time to listen to all of us and chime in with your questions. And I think ultimately this is a win-win for AAJA. I am very confident that we are in great hands. When we have a contested election, it is for the benefit of our organization and our members. I think I would love to continue to serve AAJA. I'm going to give you a quick rundown of, by the numbers. 11 years with AAJA, missed one conference, Mentor of the Year in 2016, affiliated with 3 different chapters, graduated from 2 of the 4 programs. And I think my platform is just really someone who's passionate, energetic, and always being optimistic and working with different leaders. And I'm very proud and excited to be part of that. If you have any questions, again, message me on social media or email. I've put all of my information on my website as well. It's archith.com/AAJA. And again, I'm excited to bring it to Atlanta, my hometown. I think that's also going to be an advantage to have all of you guys come to Atlanta, the South. It's not super hot. It is going to be fantastic. So thank you guys so much for your vote. And don't forget to vote before noon tomorrow. And I look forward to working with all of you and, of course, with Frank and the rest of the wonderful leaders. And may the best man win.
Thanks so much to both of you for stepping up and for your time today. And thanks to anybody who's watching this. You can still vote. The election is going to be until 12 p.m. tomorrow. Don't forget to vote. Check your email. We have the list of steps in order to vote. Thanks so much. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me or contact me in any way possible. And I know that your 2 candidates want to hear from you guys as well. Thanks a lot.
Bye, guys.